Robert Downey Jr. was sitting in a McDonald's in Los Angeles enjoying a moment of calm when a 5-year-old boy clutching a broken toy car approached and whispered something in his ear. Immediately, Robert turned pale and dialed 911. What happens next will move everyone. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. Robert Downey Jr. was enjoying a quiet meal at McDonald's in Los Angeles after spending several hours at a charity event for underprivileged children. He had chosen this simple restaurant deliberately, wanting a moment of normalcy away from the relentless spotlight of Hollywood. While eating his burger in a corner booth, he noticed a small boy with messy blonde hair watching him intently from a nearby table. The child, about 5 years old, clutched a broken toy car to his chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Sitting beside him was a well-dressed man in an expensive suit who seemed irritated and distracted, more focused on his phone call than the child. Robert observed the tension, how the man would glare at the boy whenever he shifted in his seat or made a noise. The contrast between the vulnerable child and the intimidating adult was striking. After several minutes of hesitation, the boy finally summoned enough courage to approach Robert with timid steps. When he reached the table, he leaned in and whispered something that immediately made Robert's face turn serious. The boy's name was Ethan, and he had just told Robert that the man with him, who called himself Mr. Harris, had hurt his mother, who was now lying on the floor at home and couldn't get up. Robert's expression tightened. Before he could ask more, Harris noticed Ethan's absence and marched over, his forced smile doing little to mask his irritation. He tried to casually explain that Ethan had an active imagination and that they needed to go. But Robert, trusting his instincts, positioned himself protectively between the boy and Harris. "He's clearly upset," Robert said calmly but firmly. "Give him a minute." A nearby waitress, who had been discreetly observing the situation, slipped Robert a small note. "I called the police." Harris's demeanor shifted. He began to check his phone frequently and muttered vague, veiled threats about Robert, not knowing who he was dealing with. But Robert stayed cool and kept Ethan close, his calm presence acting like a shield. Within minutes, two officers, Officer Ramirez and Officer Vega, arrived on the scene. Encouraged by Robert's support, Ethan bravely told them that Harris had hurt his mother. Despite Harris's protests and attempts to leave, the officers detained him on the spot. With Harris in the back of a patrol car, the officers, along with Robert and Ethan, headed to the boy's home. The front door was slightly ajar, and the inside was in disarray. Clear signs of a struggle. Inside, they found Sarah, Ethan's mother, unconscious on the living room floor with a head injury. Paramedics were called, and she was rushed to the hospital in critical but stable condition. Back at the McDonald's, Harris had left behind a backpack in his rush. Inside, the police found a disturbing notebook detailing how he had been monitoring and controlling Sarah and Ethan's lives for months, with plans to abduct Ethan and take him across state lines. The evidence led to serious charges of abuse and attempted kidnapping. At the hospital, Robert stayed by Ethan's side, waiting anxiously for updates on Sarah's condition. When the doctor finally came out and announced that she would make a full recovery, the relief on Ethan's face was overwhelming. A few days later, when Sarah was discharged, she tearfully thanked Robert for what he had done. He smiled gently and replied, "You've got one brave kid." He humbly redirected the praise to Ethan, emphasizing how much courage it took to speak up and ask for help. Deeply moved by the experience, Robert made a generous donation to a local organization that supports victims of domestic violence. He also used his platform to raise awareness for the cause, and in a heartfelt gesture, he had Ethan's broken toy car professionally repaired. A symbol that even broken things, like lives, can be fixed with care and support. Several months later, at a special ceremony held by the LAPD, Ethan was honored as a young hero for his bravery. During the event, he presented Robert with a colorful drawing showing the two of them holding hands with the words "My Hero" written across the top. Robert knelt beside him and said sincerely, "You were the real hero, Ethan. Asking for help when you're scared. That's the bravest thing anyone can do." Months later, Robert was invited to a ceremony organized by the police to honor Ethan. The boy was awarded the title of Young Hero for his bravery in seeking help and saving his mother. During the event, Ethan handed Robert a drawing, a boy and a man holding hands with the words "My Hero," written in colorful letters. Robert smiled and said, "You were the real hero, Ethan. Asking for help takes more courage than anything else." If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more stories of hope, compassion, and resilience.